Oh, you're on mute right now.
It's God bless y'all, but it just really sucked. It really sucked that I was jumped by 8, 9 police officers in court. And to sit right there and say, as a black man, I was not convicted or had to deal with no other charges or no other stipulations. I missed the birth of my first son that I cannot get back, a lifetime memory that I cannot get back. And for this to come back for people, and this is how we have mass shootings, because I have several licenses. And this is how things happen, that people in the state does not do their due diligence. This is how things happen and nobody cares.
This is a revocation, or is this a denial of a handgun permit?
I believe it's a revocation for sure. The letter that the department sent is a copy of notice of revocation.
All right. And so, are you an attorney, Ms. Walters?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mr. Clay, would you unmute your microphone, please? You can hit.
Yes, sir. Afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. And so you're appealing, I guess, an administrative decision by a DPS to revoke or, I guess, deny your ability to have a handgun permit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And so I'm going to listen. They have the burden of proof to show me on what basis they have made that determination. And I'm going to listen to the evidence, and I want you to also listen to the evidence and then provide me your side of the story. You don't have an attorney represent you today, Mr. Clay. You're here by yourself, pro se?
Yes, sir. I'm pro se in the matter. I attempted to hire an attorney. However, because it wasn't a criminal matter, most attorneys, even when I paid for consultation fees, refunded me because they weren't too sure about the administrative processes matter. So yes, sir, I'm pro se, do not have an attorney.
Okay. All right. And so Miss Walters, is how much discretion does the court have in this matter? Because I don't know if this is because you'll have to prove any prior determination by a court that y'all have pled, but I mean, is there any discretion as far as 5 years, 10 years, 20 years since those decisions have been made?
No, there is not, because the revocation is based on a federal disqualification. So it's really about his federal firearms eligibility. That's the reason why the department is revoking.
Well, need you to go ahead and
explain.
No, I want you to go ahead and provide whatever documents you have in support of your motion. And so I'm going to swear Mr. Clay in. So any testimony he gives is under oath, and your classification or your advocacy on behalf of DPS as an officer of the court, I assume that you're also sworn to tell the truth. So I'm not necessarily swear you in, but you're proceeding on the documents that you have that you're relying on that DPS has provided you. So, Mr. Clay, would you raise your right hand, please be sworn in? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give me will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God. Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. All right. So, Miss Walters, why are we here today?
Yes, the department is seeking to revoke Mr. Clay's handgun license. He was issued a license, and it appears that the department determined after he was issued that he was disqualified under federal law from possessing a firearm. And that is based on an October 13, 2015 order of commitment for 120 days pursuant to Article 46B 073 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. So the documents
on the third page of your motion.
I'm sorry?
Is that on the third page of your motion?
The information that I'm providing you? It's on page 2.
Okay.
It's on page 2, starts on page 2, and it is also mentioned further on page 3. So what we have is a copy of Department's Exhibit C is a copy of an order of commitment for 120 days that was issued against Mr. Clay by the court in Harris County, the 346th District Court in Harris County, which the court found that Mr. Clay was incompetent to stand trial and therefore committed to a facility designated by the Department of State Health Services. He did receive an order of restoration for competency in January of 2016. However, that does not restore his firearm rights. All that competency is just shows that he had requisite treatment or education in order for him to assist his counsel for his trial. And that's pursuant to the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 46B01, subsection 3. So under federal law, if an individual has been adjudicated as a mental defective, they are ineligible or disqualified from firearm possession. That is in 18 U.S.C. Section 922 G4. So it shall be unlawful for a person who has been adjudicated as a mental defective or who has been committed to a mental institution to ship firearms or possess a firearm or possess ammunition, which is shipped through interstate commerce or foreign commerce. So someone who's been adjudicated a mental defective is described in the Code of 27 Title 20 of the Code of Federal Regulations, and we have provided copies of all the statutes that I'm referring to, Section 922 G4 and 27 CFR 47811. So a determination by a court that the person is incompetent or is incapable of or is a danger to themselves or lacks the mental capacity to manage his or own affairs, including a finding by a court in a criminal case or found incompetent to stand trial, would fit within the definition of adjudicated mental defective. And Exhibit C we've provided is the copy of that order of initial commitment for Mr. Clay in 2015. So based on that disqualification under federal law, the license to carry a handgun statute prohibits an individual who is prohibited from possessing a firearm under federal law or is inapplicable under federal law. They're not eligible for a license to carry. And that's what the department has determined based on the information that we received. And the department can revoke a license if they determine that the individual was not eligible at the time that they were issued. So he was issued in 2020, I believe. And with the new information about this commitment, the department has the authority to take an action to revoke an individual if they were not eligible at the time that they applied, and or if the department finds out that subsequently that they're not eligible for a license to carry, then the department can revoke the license. So that's the basis for the department's actions. And as I said, I provided a copy of the commitment order, Exhibit C, page 8 of the department's documents, and all the Code of Criminal Procedure is Exhibit D, or you can take judicial notice of the Code of Criminal Procedure and 18 U.S.C. 920, 922, which we have listed as Exhibit E. So we're just asking the court to uphold the revocation.
Okay. Mr. Clay, did you get a copy of all these exhibits that DPS filed with my court?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And are you in fact the gentleman Tyrone Lamar Clay that's listed in these documents that was committed, I guess 120 days by court order to, I guess, a mental health facility?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. So this is you, and so DPS is saying that they issued one to you in 2020 inadvertently, they did not realize. And no, I don't. So I want to see Miss Walters. How did that slip through the cracks? Is it just
Truthfully, I don't know how it slipped through the cracks. My presumption is, and I could be totally wrong, is when someone either the records were not updated because the department relies on the courts to upload all this information, and if the information wasn't uploaded when the department checked, the department wouldn't know, or the parties that determine eligibility would not know, and the people who are determining eligibility are not lawyers, and so they may not know what all the documents really mean. So it could be many different reasons why it slipped through the cracks, but the department is tasked with making sure that
Go ahead. I was going to tell Mr. Clay I'm going to get to him.
Yeah, so the department is still tasked with making sure that the person is eligible as throughout their period of licensure. And if they determine they're not, then they'll take the action to revoke. That's what's going on now.
And is that a permanent revocation or disqualification, or is that ever restorable?
Excuse me. Yes, the department, since this is Texas does have, and normally, I'm not quite sure in most cases, the individual would have to go back through the court in order to restore their firearms eligibility. So there are ways for an individual to get relief from firearms disabilities. I specifically don't know in this particular case what he would have to do, but he can talk to an attorney and find out if there is a way for him to get his that relief back. But
isn't that the process that he's going through right now? Is he's wanting
he'd have to go back to the court that issued the commitment order in order for the court to say that firearm disability is lifted. This process is only for him to get that license to carry, not the relief from firearms disabilities, because that's something that it was a commitment by the specific court, and that court is as far as I understand, that court is the only court that can lift that disability.
And that's the district court in Harris County, the 338.
Yes, and I didn't submit it, but I do have, if you will take judicial notice, there's a case, United States versus Bartley. And Bartley, and it kind of explains
baseball Bartley,
BARTLEY, and it's a Court of Appeals case out of the Ninth Circuit, but it kind of goes through the process of someone who has been committed by the court and the process that they would have to go through in order to lift that disability.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Clay, if you'll unmute your microphone, please. You've heard. So I'm taking judicial notice of the exhibits that they have filed as evidence, unless you have an objection to those, saying that those are not authentic or they have been altered or in some way, shape, or fashion that those don't apply to you. What's your side of the story? Do you have any objection to those items of exhibits or evidence they've provided?
No, Your Honor, I don't have any objections to that. It sounds like we're talking about two different issues here between that the representative from the state is bringing up. We talk about two different issues here. I don't have any objections to any documents. I also want you to examine the exhibit, the mental competency order from the court, that during that time period, I was a commissioned security officer, which I am now. That's been my only profession. I've been a security officer with the state, which we have to go through background checks every 2-3 years. classes, training, retraining, where I would have to go through DPS to get clearance from DPS for all my certificates, all my training, all my licensures from the state. So even during that time period, in 2015, I was licensed with DPS as a security officer, where I was employed at that time period as a zoo ranger. This court, that case, which has been dismissed, I've never been adjudicated for anything, stemmed from when I went to court and an HPD officer told me I was impersonating a police officer due to my ranger uniform. I told him, no, I'm a security officer. I'm a commissioned security officer. I'm licensed by the state. Here are my credentials. He didn't want to look at it, end up putting his hands on me. And this is where the cause stems from, the assault on a public servant. So I end up getting jumped by 8 or 9 police officers while I was at the courthouse. I wasn't at the court. It was a civil matter because I inherited my grandparents' house during that time period. So it was a civil trash case I was going to court for. Just got off of work from the zoo, went there, and that's where all this stems from. If you look at the order, the commitment order, and even what the state it represented that that people under this category, whatever, are dangerous to society or things under that terminology. I don't have any criminal record. I've always been licensed under DPS, which you have to pretty much have a crime-free, criminal-free background, which I'm currently licensed and employed and work as a commissioned security officer here in the state of Texas, continuously even to this day. The issue with, so let me not jump too far ahead. If you look in that contempt order, at no point in time, it clearly states that I believe that I have the right to remain silent. In that right, I don't believe there's any type of limited scope where I have to open or answer to even my own attorney. So at that time, I have a public defender. I did not believe that the public defender was in my best interest. So I reserve the right to say nothing at all. And so even if we're looking at that contempt order that the state displayed as an exhibit, it clearly states that I remain silent. And then a paragraph or two later, it said that I overtalked the court. And so you can't have two at the same time. I continue my right to remain silent, and because I did not believe that the court nor my attorney was understanding my position as a commissioned security officer. It's different from a security guard. You could be a felon, get your background expunged, and work as security guard. But as a security officer in the state of Texas, you have to be licensed and credentialed. It's no different than impersonating a security officer. It's no different than impersonating a peace officer. A lot of my licensures fall under the subsections of a peace officer. So by me not opening my mouth and not having faith in the court nor my attorney, I remained silent. At that moment, or during those time periods, whatever, the bailiff took me to the back, and just like the judge is like this or whatever, like you just got to, try. They were just roughing me up. And pretty much, yes, they did issue me to a mental institution, which I had no place of being. There was nothing wrong with me. And even in that same contempt order, it clearly states that, I would be well, or they will find within a certain number of days that I will be okay. There was nothing wrong with me. By me exhibiting my rights to remain silent throughout the process, it was a really tough period of life for me. I was incarcerated. I also missed the birth of my first son during that process, and I was not there. So it took a lot from being falsely accused of hitting a peace officer. And now we're looking back almost 15 years later, and I'm still traumatized and being traumatized by these events. And so it wasn't until I was able to obtain a new attorney that the case was actually dismissed. I was never put on any type of restrictions or any guidelines on a bonds. There was no peeing. There was no seeing a counselor. There was no type of court stipulations, court orders. And then the case was dismissed. There was also a contempt of court charge that stemmed from this by my right to remain silent, that the judge and that felt that I was, I didn't want to comply essentially with the court. So in the long run, the case ends up being dismissed. And I find it, that was before body cameras. And I find it hard to believe as a almost 32-year-old Black man, commissioned security officer in the state of Texas, on that day that I was going in there to see behind my grandparents' house in a civil courtroom before there were body cameras, because this was a case originally occurred at, that there are 8 police officers that are on that case as witnesses, that I assaulted a police officer, and there was not a deferred in a courthouse with other government officials, cameras, everything. So that's why it's traumatized, because I was screwed over by the police officer and by the court system, that there was no deferred adjudication. There was no type of stipulations to come out of this case for me to get it off of my record or anything, in that manner. And so I've never got it expunged. It hasn't hindered my ability to work or continue my employment. And what did happen during that case was that when I originally caught the case, no different if you're licensed in the medical field, any type of state licensure, if a criminal matter succeeds or violates whatever the licensing government agency, they're going to issue a packet that says like, hey, you're going to have to appear before the board, or your license is under review, or it's currently been suspended. I went through that process because even during that time period, I was a security officer registered under the state, and they suspended my license when that case happened. I got a packet sent to my house where the state suspended my license, and I couldn't work as a security officer in the state of Texas. Once the case was dismissed, I took the dismissal form and I appealed the state's decision in 2016, where they overturned my my suspended license. It wasn't revoked; it was just temporarily suspended, and I have not had an issue or a problem since then. The reason also want to let the court know that I've been through, as I stated, we have to go through several background checks every 2-3 years. We have to go through certifications. All these who are certified by other state personnel, certified and structured by the state, all these documents have to be submitted to the state, as well as the state does their own due diligence, when it comes to background checks or anything that may prohibit me from, my employment. And as I want to let the court know that this has been my only occupation my entire life. And currently I'm in college right now to become a peace officer. And so even during this moment right now, I would have to go before TCO, which goes through the same licensing department that I'm under right now, to be a peace officer. I already have most of my certification credentials because I'm already a commissioned security officer. The reason that this has came about now, or the reason that this issue has arisen within this year, is because in March, I was arrested for unlawful carrying of a weapon in Austin, Texas. I was arrested for unlawful carry of a weapon in Austin, Texas, where I had a
When was this?
This was March. It was around my birthday. My birthday is March 5th, I believe. I want to say it was like March 7th or 8th.
Okay.
I was arrested for unlawful carrying of a weapon, where the officers, it was a situation where my neighbor had been threatening me ever since I moved in with a handgun. I reported it to the management office several times. I reported it to APD and have case numbers that I reported to them, but APD never pressed charges or never, did anything with that. I have the reports from that, as well as the reports from me filing complaints with management saying like, hey, this has occurred. Video documentation, even though this is a whole different matter, but I just want to give you reason why this has transpired all of a sudden after all these years. this has just occurred. So that was an issue where my neighbor pulled out a gun on me. I stood my ground. I had mine back because it was an ongoing situation for over a year and a half now, and nobody has done anything. I was arrested because the officer said that it wasn't a holster, even though it was. That case was just dismissed this morning. So this is why these are the state this year, or the time period as they started this, is because the case, it was an issue where I feel as if they couldn't get me one way, they were gonna get me another way. I've been compliant. The case was, as I want to let the court know, was dismissed today. I have no criminal record. I don't take matters into my own hand. Even as a commissioned security officer, I always report things to the police or to the authorities, no matter what. And I just don't feel as if, I feel as if my record essentially speaks for itself. I have not been to court behind any misconduct, behind any arrests, or any type of use of force that I've probably have had to use on a civilian while doing my duties as a commissioned security officer. I've had to, confer with local police departments, sheriff departments in the area. So I feel as if me not obtaining there's essentially no criminal history here. And the line of work that I work in would contradict my belief and my value. So I just wanted the court to put the court on notice here that this is literally my livelihood. This is the only thing I've ever done. I'm in school right now to be a law enforcement officer, to change the narrative, to change just the world perspective. Like, I grew up, I know I'm 30, almost 32, but I grew up in an older era and got to see the world, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, might hit you with a buggy cart, if you don't say, excuse me, in a grocery store. So I try to exhibit to the world, to my country, to the state of Texas, the way I was reared, the way I love my state, and the way I want to give back to the state and to my community. And that's pretty much all I have to say on the matter. If anything, I would ask for a stay on the motion. If there is a thought of denial, I've subpoenaed, well, not subpoena, but I've asked the psychiatric place that I was sent to for any type of records. They don't have any. And I pretty much told them, like, hey, I can't essentially take that into court. So can I get that on a piece of paper that none of this exists? I just find it really hard to say that I assaulted a police officer in a courthouse that morning with 8-9 officers witnessing, and the case was entirely dismissed, but there's something wrong with me. I just don't understand that, Your Honor. There's nothing wrong with me. I have a 3.0 GPA. I'm currently engaged. I'm a father to 3 now. And that 2015 time period, that incident, it really took a lot. It was one of the darkest time periods of my life, essentially missing the birth of my first son, but I never let that deter me from being a positive and productive father, citizen, or anything in that manner. And I would just like to continue on with my career, my journey, as I've displayed that I feel as if I'm not perfect. No, I'm not by any means. I sin. I do things wrong. I might speed sometimes. Sometimes I might not use my signal. So I'm not going to sit right here and play like I'm a perfect human being and I'm upright, because I just try to be upright and a good, as I stated, father and Texan as possible. And that's pretty much all I have to say, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and you're a very good advocate for yourself. I mean, who was handling your case on the unlawfully carrying a weapon? Who was your attorney on that?
Michael Todd. His name is Michael Todd. I have the dismissal paper right here as well.
Did you tell him that you were also dealing with this handgun thing?
Yes, sir, I
license to carry?
did. Yes, sir, I did. And we talked about that today. You know, as he told me, he was like, you know, these are two different. The administrative is a whole different issue from that criminally. And he stated like, hey, I don't venture too off in that. And I was like, I know because I've called around and I paid for consultations and even got refunded. He gave me a business card to a co-attorney or something like that of his and say he may pick up the or will look at the case. But once again, when it comes to gun cases or anything in that realm of firearms, if it's not a criminal case, it has really been hard for me to find an attorney that knows anything about the administrative procedure. But he said, if there's nothing on my record, the case has been completely dismissed. Once again, I went through with this case here, I went through two different classes, a cognitive class, and I don't recall the name of the other class, but I want to say it's maybe like 50 hours or so in classes or whatever that the Honorable Judge Denise Hernandez.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That I completed with the court. Aside from that, there has been no other the case was dismissed, and that wasn't something that was ordered necessarily by the prosecutors.
Sure,
That was
just
me just showing that
being
I'm
proactive, sure.
yes,
So,
sir, in good faith.
so where are you going to school?
San Antonio Community College. They have a law enforcement academy program.
And
That's that.
so do you commute? Is it online or how's that?
Oh, no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. You have to actually physically go to campus for this program. It's to actually obtain your T code credentials. So I'm already a junior with my college credits. As I stated, I already have certifications now, such as for me carrying a firearm, not as a civilian, but I have another licensure from the state as a commissioned security officer. So that I'm tongue twisted.
This is yeah. Well, this is going to have to get straightened out.
Yeah, I'm tongue twisted.
Miss Walters, what's your response to Mr. Clay?
Well, first of all, this is really, he's bringing up his criminal case, and this issue is not really about the criminal matter. It's about the commitment, and that's really what we need to focus on. If that commitment did occur, and he's not disputing that it did occur, the issue now is whether or not he can get it lifted, and so that disability is removed, because right now he does have a disability. It's not about, and this is also not about occupation or private security. This is about the license to carry and whether or not he's eligible.
Is there any type of documentation or paperwork saying that I am disabled? Because it just seems that the state is just saying that I'm disabled because a judge orders that. If the judge tell me to do 10 jumping jacks in his courtroom and I don't want to do that, he could find me and in contempt of his courtroom and have me and sentence me if I don't want to comply, with his order.
Right.
I don't have
That's contempt. This was a commitment for 120 days. And you actually went for about 90 days. You were there about 90 days before they
I had no
competency.
Yes, sir. I had literally no choice. I had no choice. And this was exactly what this stems from. But I was never adjudicated. There's nothing that says like I'm disabled. The state has presented
but the fact
evidence.
The fact that you were committed by Judge Thomas back in Harris County back in 2015, which you admit was a dark time in your life. There was probably a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, and, no, not for me personally, but getting assaulted by a police officer and in a court of law and being accused of something that I didn't do.
You were there because you said your grandparents had passed away. You were there to see Tyler or something or another, right? So
yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure that was not pleasant.
Not at all. My life was fine before, but obviously going into this matter, this happened. But I want to get back to as the state said, there is nothing that the state has presented us that says that I'm disabled or anything like that. If the judge wants to issue that, they have the full authority to to do so. There's no evidence saying that they have presented any type of evidence from a medical perspective that's saying like, hey, this is why, or these, like, no.
We don't,
Go ahead.
we don't have to present anything from the doctor. We just need to show that court made that determination. And by federal law, that's all that's required. As I said, if he can get that firearm disability lifted, this would potentially go away. But right now it's still there.
That's
what firearm disability? There's no disability.
Because you were committed back in 2015 to a mental health facility by order of the court. And so that determines that they wouldn't have sent you there if they didn't feel you were not competent. If they believe you were competent to stand trial and assist your attorney in your defense, they wouldn't have sent you. And so there is an order of restoration to be competent to stand trial, but not I don't know what type of order would have to be issued by the court to restore your eligibility to carry a firearm. I'm going to look at that case that you cited, Ms. Walters. And Ms. Walters is an attorney, Mr. Clay, and I don't think she has any animus towards you, or doesn't know you from Adam, and doesn't want to see you railroaded either. And if that has happened in some way, shape, or form, I sympathize with your situation. But if legally I can't order them to
okay, so can we not prolong the situation? Go ahead, do what y'all do. I'll find an attorney. Y'all take care and be blessed.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read that case, Miss Walters, and if that supports your position, I'll find and affirm the petition for revocation. But and look into what attorneys could help you and act as that buffer, Mr. Clay, with you in the court to figure out what needs to be done to restore your competency to be able to proceed with your profession that you're studying for, that you're working hard towards. I want to support you in that if you're eligible for that. But there's going to be some steps you're going to have to take to do so. And I'm sorry this is frustrating. I know it's ticking you off, but it's a challenge, but not one that can't be overcome. Oh, you're on mute right now.
It's God bless y'all, but it just really sucked. It really sucked that I was jumped by 8, 9 police officers in court. And to sit right there and say, as a black man, I was not convicted or had to deal with no other charges or no other stipulations. I missed the birth of my first son that I cannot get back, a lifetime memory that I cannot get back. And for this to come back for people, and this is how we have mass shootings, because I have several licenses. And this is how things happen, that people in the state does not do their due diligence. This is how things happen, and nobody cares. And I'm not sure what the state is doing with their money or what things are being done to prevent mass shootings or things from people who should be carrying firearms. But even somebody as simple for me, that even if something was wrong with me, look and take notice, Your Honor, of how the state is negligent. But thank y'all so much. This sucks even coming from my own state that I'm proud of. To sit right there and have to deal with this 15 years later. It sucks. It really sucks. But God bless you. I have nothing else to say. Y'all take care.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Wish the best for you as well. If you'll forward that, please, or actually, I'll look it up, Miss Walters. I'll look it up and
okay.
Do you have an order?
It should be attached to the petition in the back. I guess Mr. Clay is gone.